Woo! Man, I got to tell you, that was close. I thought we were going to get through a season without hearing anything stupid out of Sheryl Swoopes' mouth and anything that sounds rather interesting, something that you might choose to give some side eye to.
Man, it's hard, right? We all reached out. I think that they brought really good people in, great people into training camp this year. But just because you didn't make this squad, this is probably one of the harder rosters to make in the W this year. It doesn't mean you're out of the W, and you just got to keep ready, keep playing, keep grinding it out. And if it's hard to make the league. I know Sid and I, we were second rounders. We stuck. Her experience is a little bit different than mine, but just because you didn't make a roster doesn't mean you're out of the W forever.
Call me nuts, but unfortunately for the old WNBA fandom and media, in her case, media and old players, unfortunately, in some cases, you do feel like there is something else lurking behind said opinions that may not be basketball related. Let's put it that way.
Did you feel that subtle tremor beneath the surface of the WNBA? The Indiana Fever are at the center of a storm, and it's not just about Caitlin Clark anymore. Sheryl Swoopes has unleashed her opinion on their recent moves, and it's got everyone talking. Comment down below, Swoopes knows, if you think she's hitting the nail on the head with her analysis. We want to hear all sides of this brewing controversy because what began as seemingly standard roster decisions has spiraled into a drama filled with pointed accusations, racial undertones, and questions that strike at the very heart of the league's evolving identity. This isn't just about basketball anymore, it's about power, perception, and a battle for the narrative.
Michaela Simpson is obviously at a certain level. She's a rim runner. She just obviously has a higher ceiling than Ejim at the moment. And this is maybe a hot take.
After all, we saw Sheryl Swoopes in rare form hating on Caitlin Clark all last year. Well, maybe she has figured out, well, hating on Clark, I've been told that's not really a great idea, yada, yada, yada. So what other white girls can I tune up from the Indiana Fever?
The first shockwave hit with the abruptness of a blindside screen. The Indiana Fever, a team under a microscope thanks to the arrival of Caitlin Clark, made headlines for something other than their electrifying new point guard. They began trimming their roster, and the cuts were brutal. First, Bria Hall, the dynamic guard from South Carolina, a two-time national champion with a promising future, was let go. She'd barely had a chance to break a sweat in a Fever uniform, with minimal preseason minutes before her dream was unceremoniously paused. The ink on her training camp contract had hardly dried. Fans who envisioned her dynamic play adding depth to the Fever roster were left stunned. How could a player with such a collegiate pedigree be dismissed so quickly, without a real opportunity to showcase her talents on the professional stage? The silence from the Fever's front office was deafening, allowing speculation to run wild. But the axe wasn't done falling, not by a long shot. Just as the basketball world was processing Hall's departure, another name surfaced, Yvonne Ejim. The prolific scorer from Gonzaga, a player known for her heart and relentless motor, was also waived. Two highly touted rookies, both with glittering collegiate resumes and the kind of potential that scouts drool over, were shown the door before they could even find their footing in Indianapolis. The message, whether intended or not, was chillingly clear. The WNBA is a tough business, and the Indiana Fever, despite their newfound spotlight, were making some hard, perhaps even ruthless choices. For Hall and Ejim, it was a harsh introduction to the realities of professional sports, where talent alone doesn't guarantee survival. Their hopes, and the hopes of their supporters, were put on hold, leaving a bitter taste and a mountain of questions.
Okay, example. The Washington Mystics Indiana Fever game. Because I know on social media, people were like, well, why aren't the starters in for the Mystics? They could win this game. And I was there, right? Because preseason is about, yes, you're going to play your starters. You're going to play your players. Typically, they don't even play that many minutes, right? Because you have so many players on your roster that you got to make roster cuts. So you're still trying to figure out who can fit what we're doing.
My goodness, I mean, we've had 2 preseason games. 2. And we're back to it. We're back here. She's criticizing Stephanie White. I bet Sheryl Swoopes hates that last name. Criticizing Stephanie White And, of course, it relates to Lexi Hall and Sophie Cunningham. Ooh, I bet Sheryl Swoopes hates her some Sophie Cunningham. You know she does.
What exactly was going on within the Fever organization to necessitate such swift, seemingly premature dismissals? The answer, it turns out, was buried in the fine print of contracts and the unforgiving nature of the salary cap. To truly understand the sting of these cuts, you have to peek behind the curtain at the Fever's financial tightrope walk. The team found itself in a precarious salary cap situation, a predicament largely stemming from the need to buy out hefty contracts from previous seasons like the one belonging to Katie Lou Samuelson. This financial maneuvering, while necessary for long-term flexibility, left them with an incredibly tight budget for the current season, so tight in fact they could realistically only afford to carry 11, maybe 12 players on their active roster. Less than many other teams. Compounding this issue was the fact that a significant portion of their roster spots were already locked up by veterans with guaranteed contracts. Players like Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, Nalisa Smith, Erica Wheeler, and other established names weren't going anywhere. Their salaries were committed, meaning if they were cut, the team would still be on the hook financially. This created a brutal numbers game. When you deducted these guaranteed spots, the number of available positions for incoming rookies and training camp invitees dwindled to almost nothing. Essentially, Bria Hall, Yvonne Ejim, and even a drafted rookie like Celeste Taylor, who did make the team, were all locked in a fierce battle for perhaps a single remaining spot. It was a high-stakes game of musical chairs, and when the music stopped, two promising careers were, at least temporarily, sidelined. While this explains the cold logic, it did little to soften the blow for the players or quell the rising tide of unease.
Ariafin, okay. This is gonna be a spicy season, cause Kiki was like, "What, Sophie? Girl, don't come over here." Sophie was like,
"Already,
I was
game
here
one,
here for it." But the fact that's a rookie. Right?
I know.
Kiki,
she did not back down.
But she just turned and laughed. She was like, what? What did you say? What are we doing?
Swoopes hadn't shied away from speaking her mind, as last season she raised questions about the legitimacy of Indiana Fever stars Caitlin Clark's collegiate scoring record. During the recent episode, Swoopes questioned Fever head coach Stephanie White's decision to give veterans like Lexi Hall and Sophie Cunningham minutes over Bria Hall and then cut her without giving her a fair opportunity to prove herself.
And that unease was about to find a very public voice. Just as the dust from the roster cuts began to settle, Sheryl Swoopes, a WNBA legend whose recent commentary has often courted controversy, stepped back into the spotlight with the subtlety of a freight train. It was as if she'd been waiting in the wings, microphone hot, ready for this exact moment. The news of Bria Hall's release in particular seemed to be the spark Swoopes needed. Appearing on a prominent women's basketball show, she didn't just offer a casual opinion, she launched a verbal assault, and her primary target was Indiana Fever's head coach, Stephanie White. Swoopes didn't mince words, immediately questioning White's preseason strategy. Why, she demanded, was Bria Hall kept glued to the bench during crucial evaluation periods? If the team was genuinely trying to determine who deserved a spot, why wasn't a player with Hall's potential given ample opportunity to prove herself in game situations? Swoopes painted a picture of a flawed, perhaps even unfair evaluation process, suggesting that Hall was never given a legitimate shot. Her tone wasn't just critical, it was accusatory, hinting that something more than just basketball decision-making was at play. The WNBA world leaned in. This was getting interesting and deeply uncomfortable.
You guys.
Oh my God, Sophie's a dog. She just is. She's a competitor. She's versatile, so she allows us to do different things. Like, she plays with such a toughness. She's huge, and she's going to be for us all season long. But what she brings from an energy standpoint, she raises the level of play of everybody around her as soon as she steps foot on the floor. Hell, even on the sideline. I mean, her communication, everything. She's definitely an X factor.
Swoopes didn't stop at questioning playing time. She dug deeper, aiming her critique directly at Coach Stephanie White's handling of player rotations, and by implication, the players who did receive significant minutes. She specifically pointed to veterans Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hall, questioning why they were seemingly prioritized over a rookie like Bria Hall, especially if roster spots were truly up for grabs. The insinuation was clear. Were certain players being favored? And then Swoopes dropped the comment that sent shockwaves through social media and the league itself. With a tone dripping in what many interpreted as sarcasm and a thinly veiled accusation, she quipped that perhaps since she'd been, metaphorically, warned off criticizing Caitlin Clark, she should focus on tuning up the other white girls on the Fever. The statement was explosive. It wasn't just shade, it was a direct injection of racial discourse into the already tense situation. The implication, whether intended to be fully literal or a provocative jab, was that race might be playing a role in who gets opportunities and who gets cut on the Indiana Fever. This wasn't just about minutes on the court anymore, it was about fairness, perception, and the kind of allegations that can tarnish reputations and ignite infernos. The drama had officially reached a new and far more volatile level.
The preseason doesn't have to be just about your draft picks at all. It can be about, I need this team to learn how to build chemistry on the floor together, working as a team. By the way, learning my system because I'm a new coach and we're not playing under the Christie Sides rules anymore. You played basketball, Sheryl Swoopes? I don't understand.
To those who have followed Sheryl Swoopes' commentary over the past year, this latest outburst might not come as a total surprise. It seems to fit a developing pattern of scrutiny, particularly when it comes to Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. Last season, Swoopes was one of the most prominent voices questioning the legitimacy of Clark's collegiate scoring records, nitpicking her age, her style of play, and even suggesting she wouldn't dominate as easily in the pros. Her critiques often felt dismissive, almost resentful of the immense spotlight Clark was commanding. Now with Clark officially in the WNBA and bringing an unprecedented wave of attention to the Fever, Swoopes' focus appears to have broadened. It's no longer just about Clark, it's about the entire Fever operation, their coaching decisions, and the players surrounding their new superstar. One could argue that Swoopes sees herself as a truth teller, holding the league and its new darlings accountable. Others might perceive it as an old guard skepticism, a reluctance to fully embrace the seismic shift Clark represents, or perhaps even a calculated move to stay relevant by stoking controversy. Whatever her motivations, her comments have undeniably positioned her as a central and highly polarizing figure in the narrative surrounding the Fever season. This history adds another layer of complexity to her current accusations, suggesting a deeper undercurrent to her criticism of the Bria Hall situation.
Keep in mind, a lot of this team is new to each other. So getting minutes upon with a new player like Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hall together, and some of these others, veterans, I'm sure is a priority. It's not about getting the minutes to prove whether or not they make the team. This team has to build actual chemistry if they want to win a title. That's what this is about.
While Swoopes was fanning the flames of controversy, the Indiana Fever's coaching staff, led by Stephanie White, was likely operating from a completely different playbook, one focused on long-term team building rather than short-term preseason optics. The reality for a team integrating a generational talent like Caitlin Clark alongside other new and existing pieces is that chemistry and experience become paramount. While raw talent like Bria Halls is enticing, coaches often prioritize players who understand the rigors of the WNBA, who can provide stability, and who fit specific system needs. Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hall, the players Swoopes seem to target, are veterans. They've logged meaningful minutes in the league, they understand defensive rotations, offensive spacing, and the sheer grind of a professional season. In a young team looking to make a serious playoff push, these qualities are invaluable. Furthermore, Sophie Cunningham had a standout preseason, showcasing not just her skills, but also her leadership and tenacity, effectively demonstrating why she earned her spot. Preseason isn't solely about evaluating rookies, it's a critical period for coaches like Stephanie White to instill their systems, build cohesion among new and returning players, and establish a team identity. Cutting promising rookies is always tough, but the decisions were likely rooted in a strategic vision for building a contender, not in the nefarious motives Swoopes seemed to imply.
The whole team, outside of your core four, Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell and Lexi Hull, basically the whole rest of the whole team's new. Dantas is on there. Oh, you get my point, but you got a bunch of new pieces.
The sheer scale of the Caitlin Clark phenomenon cannot be overstated, and it casts a long, complicated shadow over everything the Indiana Fever does. This is a player who has single-handedly rewritten viewership records, sent ticket sales into the stratosphere, and made WNBA merchandise a hot commodity. Arenas are selling out, not just for Fever home games, but for their road games too. She's brought millions of new eyes to the league, injecting an unprecedented level of excitement and economic vitality. Clark is, by all accounts, a stimulus package the WNBA never saw coming. Yet, this incredible rise comes with an almost unbearable weight of expectation and scrutiny. Because she is the face of the franchise and arguably the new face of the league, every decision the Indiana Fever organization makes, from coaching strategies to roster cuts, is inevitably and often unfairly linked back to her. The reality is Caitlin Clark isn't in the front office managing the salary cap or deciding who gets waived. That's the responsibility of Coach White and the team's management. But in the court of public opinion, especially when fueled by controversial commentary, nuances get lost. Clark is in a pressure cooker where her performance is intensely analyzed and her team's administrative choices are dissected as if she personally signed off on them. This is the complex, often unfair burden that comes with being a generational talent in the modern media landscape.
Sheryl Swoopes is in mid-season hateration form. I'm sorry, this looks a different way to me. All right? You just, there's no other way around it.
So what are we to make of this escalating drama? The Indiana Fever, a team poised for a potentially historic season spearheaded by Caitlin Clark, finds itself embroiled in a controversy that touches on issues of race, fairness, and the very soul of the WNBA. On one hand, Sheryl Swoopes' fiery accusations about the handling of Bria Hall and the alleged preferential treatment of other players have undeniably struck a nerve, forcing uncomfortable conversations. Is she a whistleblower, courageously speaking truth to power and exposing potential inequities within the system? Or is her commentary a reflection of an older guard struggling to reconcile with a new era, perhaps using controversy to maintain her own platform? On the other hand, the Fever's decisions, viewed through the lens of brutal salary cap realities and the strategic need for veteran stability around a young superstar, appear more pragmatic, albeit harsh. This isn't just a simple dispute, it's a flashpoint in a league grappling with explosive growth and the cultural shifts that come with it. As the real season gets underway, this preseason heat promises to intensify. The spotlight on Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever will only get brighter, and every win, every loss, every coaching decision will be scrutinized under this newly charged atmosphere. The old guard and the new school are clashing, and the reverberations will be felt far beyond the basketball court. What do you think is truly driving this conflict? And what does it spell for the future of the Fever and the WNBA?